Hello YouTube, Sp4zie coming right at you, and welcome to my reworked Vel'Koz guide / review. Vel'Koz has been what I guess you could call my main for quite some time, and you guys have been spamming me wanting to hear my thoughts on the rework, so I thought this video was kind of something I had to do. We are of course talking patch 6.9 and beyond, and this video is going to be good for those of you who want to pick up and learn the Angle Master, but hopefully I'll give some insight as to how to play against him as well. We're going to start by talking about the changes and what they actually mean, and then we'll move on to a brief rundown of the runes and masteries and items that I use, and then we'll round it all off with some tips and tricks and some gameplay. So here we go. First off, the passive. The burst of the third stack has gotten a slight buff as it now scales off ability power. Doesn't change much in terms of gameplay, but when you know that you can hit a squishy target with that third stack late game, know that there is gonna be a nice chunk of true damage that can be worth playing pretty aggressively for. The Q. So they went ahead and gave this ability a mana refund system where if it kills a unit, it will restore 50% of the mana spent, and this means that if you kill 3 minions with your Q, you will actually gain mana from it. But most importantly, the thing that was not in the patch notes is that they removed the outer indication of the Q for your enemies, so they can no longer see the max range where it will automatically detonate. Everything about Vel'Koz is about hitting these Qs. They start almost every combo, it's your premier poke. The fact that they made this harder to juke is an enormous buff, and I love it. The W. So here they nerfed the AP scaling on both the first and the second hit of this ability, and I was scared this was going to diminish the early game shove potential that Vel'Koz had, but as it turns out, I really don't feel like it matters too much, but in combination with all the other changes, this nerf has made me not max W anymore and put those early points in Q, which honestly I found out liking because the Q is the fun part about Vel'Koz, and putting points in it early opens up to more plays and more decision making in general. The E. One more round of nerfs here as they lower the scaling on this ability as well, and I feel like these nerfs are what allows for the other buffs to his kit, so nothing that really changes up the gameplay in any way. The R. Ah yes, everyone's screaming that this is OP. Let's be clear about this. They buffed the damage late game and buffed the scaling, and if you activate your passive by hitting 3 spells on your target first, this laser will now deal true damage. Now this all sounds super bananas, but there's also a nerf in here, which is that the ultimate itself doesn't add stacks of the passive, and this actually means that in terms of pure damage output, it is higher when you hit your combo and lower when you don't. And this has pretty practically removed the QR combo that you used to be able to melt squishes with before if you were fed. And to me, that was a big surprising part of his kit, and that's now gone. But on the contrary, if you do hit anyone, be it a tank or a squishy with a full combo, ooh, they will melt. So in terms of leveling the skills, like I said, I now max Q instead of W. Then I max W, then E, and of course R whenever it's up. I do almost always start W though to get some early shove going and get a nice little CS advantage on the first 2 waves. Runes. In my opinion, getting max CDR on Vel'Koz is extremely strong and very crucial to succeeding. 6 scaling CDR per level blues will allow me to get 10% CDR, and we'll calculate this with items later. I fill up the 3 slots of blues with scaling ability power, magic pen reds, AP quints, and scaling per health yellows, which you can always switch out for armor if you're up against AD. Masteries, I go 12-18-0. Thunderlords just gives you optimal trades and early power, so I suggest you always grab that. Some things are up for your preference. I mean, I prefer Feast over Double-Edged Sword. My laning style is pretty aggressive, so Feast often allows me to stay for more minions when I might otherwise have to be. Same logic applies with Secret Stats instead of Runic Affinity, but yeah, you can switch things out for whatever works best for you. And finally, items. I found that these new changes have sort of pushed me to play Vel'Koz the way I like to play him even more. The Q refund system together with the new changes to items allows you to prioritize burst early instead of mana and regen, and thusly, I rush Luden's Echo as first item. This gives me the best minion clear, the best all-in potential, and the best poke. I then follow that up with a Morelos, which is just such a strong and well-rounded item right now after the changes. And now, with boots, you'll have to make a decision. Remember those 10% CDR runes? With Morelos and Lucidity, this will guarantee you 40% CDR mid to late game. However, Sork boots will of course grant you more damage output. For me, the amounts of blues I can get usually decides this. If there's a fiddle in the jungle, I'll opt for Lucidity, but if I know I can get all the blues and I've got a good laning phase, I'll go for Sork boots knowing that I'll reach max CDR with blue buff. Of Of course, it goes without saying that if you have to build the new Zhonya's, then you should remember that it gives you CDR, so you should go Sork Boots instead. And late game, it all depends on what comp you've got and what you're up against. Rabadons will give you Sick Burst, Void Staff is still worth, even though you do deal a lot of true damage. I am personally a big fan of Liandry's, even though I know a lot of people aren't. But yes, always remember that itemization should be flexible. You need to see what is needed. A good example is that I've won several games where I've gone for a Quicksilver just to cleanse that Rammus lockdown and set up counter engages. So yeah, practice how to itemize correctly, my friends, and you should be good. Let's move on to some general tips and tricks, starting with the laning phase. Shoving the lane early is generally a pretty good idea to get ahead, and with your W, it'll be very easy to do. Practice getting all the CS while doing this. Focus on the melee ones first, and pay attention to the minion aggro to get the ranged ones as well. Your Q is the key component to your kit, and the classic angle you look for is the one that goes to the side of the minion wave, and this is where prediction comes in. You'll have to guess if you're gonna activate it early in case they juke forward, or let it go the full distance. If you hit it, follow it up with an easy E and a W for a nice chunk of burst. Now, if you're playing against Vel'Koz, moving all the way back is the easiest way to dodge it. You also have the option to move forward in order to juke it, but remember, do not move sideways. It's a bad idea. Now here's a pro tip. If you've used your Q and it missed, a lot of the times your enemies will go forward feeling that they're safe. This is when you can actually look for a cheeky EW combo without the slow. It's a little bit risky because if you've missed, you've used all your resources and mana and you leave yourself very exposed, but if you hit, it's gonna feel good. Remember to always keep an eye on your mana and practice how to get 3 creeps with your Q. Mastering it will help you to stay an extra wave or shove it really quickly if you killed your enemy or they've gone back. And if you have enough mana, you can always use your W to proc the passive for a secure 3 creep hit. So when do you use your ultimate? Well, if you don't see a target that is super low that you can secure, you should always, and I repeat, always look for that passive proc first. If you played Vel'Koz before this patch, you'll have to practice this mentality. 90% of the time using the ult without the passive will leave you pretty disappointed. And if you're playing against Vel'Koz, this is what you should use to your advantage. If he's used his abilities, well, especially the E, know that the passive will probably not be procced, and thusly you'll significantly out-trade him if you go in for it. Some final notes on team fights is that of course you want to stay back and always focus on what threats they have so you can predict how they're gonna dive on you, because you're Vel'Koz, they will dive on you. Always keep an eye on what summoners and escapes you have and decide before the fight starts which targets are worth going for. Usually it isn't really that bad to go for the tanks due to your true damage, but remember, you want to look for AoE scenarios to make the most out of your damage output. If it's not a squishy key target, try your hardest not to ult for one enemy. After some practice, you will indeed be able to look for the backline more often, even though it's a risky business. And Vel'Koz is a very legitimate burst mage after this rework. So using vision to your advantage to look for picks is a very good strategy. And that is it for this guide. I hope that you'll find success on this champion. He is, in my opinion, one of the most rewarding ones you find out there. Whenever you hit that Q, you feel like a complete boss. Leave me a like if you enjoyed, share this around with your friends if you want to help me out, and don't forget to subscribe for more League content. Also ask your questions in the comments below and I'll try to get to as many as I can. Thanks for watching, friends. Stay awesome, and I'll see you next time. This has been Sp4zie, and I'm out. Dudes!